I'm 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼, the storeman, stroke crane driver, and I look after and maintain the breakdown crane. That's my pride and joy. When I first came up here and the shed master at the time asked me if I wanted to drive it, it was like a cherry on the cake. And I've been with it for the last 28 years. And I won't hear a bad word said against it. It's just, I just love it to bits. I can't take it home with me. I just love it to bits. I think it's a wonderful bit of kit, and especially now it's 100 years old.
So we're doing various lifts this week. It's Heartland's boiler roll. We're lifting Eric's tender off its wheel sets. We've got a Q6 tender to lift. We try and do as many lifts as possible with the crane set up in position. But before we do any of that, we do our planning. So we've got lift plans to write. We've got to think how we keep people safe. We've got various methods. We write down and log what we're planning on doing. Then we have a debrief period in case anything did change on the lift. We plan on how much we're lifting and where we're going to pick things up. We've got some chaps on training for these lifts as well. So we need to document that and what we've done. And just make sure everybody's safe. So like any lift, is the people in the way is the danger. You got to all go back with the amount of fingers and thumbs you came with. We mitigate that by having things like exclusion zones. I nominate with Charlie who's going to be on the lift. We don't just let anybody willy-nilly. We have specific skill sets. So if we need a burner will be on a lift. Say if you're taking an ash pan off. We have the slingers. So we have their skill sets. And then we'll have an enthusiastic member of the team who can hump and rave with us and get mucked in. But you all need to muck in and there's no bystanders. The lift, especially this time of year, you generally start lifting about 8:30 when we get a bit of daylight. And by 2:30, the light's gone to the side of the valley and it's getting dark. I don't like lifting in the dark. I have, when calls have been needed to, but we plan the start time, the end times, and we're generally pretty good at it by now. The folder in front of me is all the lifts I've planned over the years. It goes right back to 2014, so we're getting quite good at it.
So we're hopefully training 2 more crane drivers and a potential third who's suddenly surprised us with his interest. And we're keen to keep that interest going by slowly teaching him how the thing works. And every time we do a lift, we try and do it in there's 2 of them, so we try and keep that going. So one will drive the crane, and then next time the crane's needed, we'll use the next person, in these 2 fellas, and keep them rotating. And we have a young lad called Sam who's now started on the ground, learning how to set the crane up, block it, and make sure it's safe to use when we have to pull all the legs out. He's learning from there. The other 2 are learning how to drive it. It's they've come in a bit higher up, but they're both steam fitters, so it's second nature to them how this thing works.
It's important to train people because we're the last of the gang using this breakdown crane, and Charlie will be able to plot back where it came from right through its history since Mr. 𝙁𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼 ordered that one for when the A4s were put in production. But we need to continue it on so people are working safely. The skills that I was taught by Roy Haynes and others, and the skills that Charlie picked up from people who drove before him, all need passing on so they can continue using it, because it's in its 100th year this year. And it's a hell of a bit of kit, and it's really versatile, really useful. It's quite labour heavy. It's not like a modern crane that you've just got a button and it's up in the air, but it does everything we want it to do and more, really. And it's kind of a super cheap bit of equipment that's just been built to last and's done really well. Oh, it's best bit of plant we have. It's best steam engine we have, I think. Yeah, crane lifts are a great day. You work at the end of them because it's quite manually heavy, but once you've worked out how you're going to lift and then you see it in action and it's lifted and you've moved it where you want it to go, there's quite a bit of a buzz about that. Been the last people to use it.
The crane was initially ordered by Nigel Gresley because in 1923 he built his A1 Pacifics, but he had nothing to pick them up with. So he consulted Carlisle crane builders, Cowans and Sheldon, about building two 45-ton breakdown cranes. And our crane, which is the first one, 4524, was allocated to Doncaster, and it was stayed there till the mid-60s, when it then transferred to 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼, and it stayed there till 1979, when it was put up for sale, and our railway purchased it, had it delivered, and we've maintained it ever since. Its main purpose was, because it was only made for main line work, recovery of express locomotives like these A1s, these two cranes could be called upon from Gateshead, where the other one was, and ours at Doncaster, to go to any location on the main line where these engines might have come into grief. Flying Scotsman came off, and it's noted that the Doncaster crane came to collect it, put it back on the rails. It was off all wheels. Going to an accident, it was allowed to travel at 45 miles an hour to a do, and that would be Class A express lengths. It would take a precedent over a passenger train, a breakdown train going to clear the line. And it worked all over. The furthest south I've got a recording of it is Welwyn Garden Cities in 1935. It went down there to assist in a train crash, but it got all over. It was just where they needed a crane. No, there was only these two cranes. The other one, ours is number 107. That one was 154. That started up at Gateshead. It moved down to Darlington. In fact, it went along the Esk Valley line to help repair a bridge during the 35 floods. And there's a picture of it on a record of it assisting another crane to put a bridge back in over the river. But when that was withdrawn, it went to 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼 as well. And they do say that the two cranes, they made one out of two because they were twins. But we don't know which bits they changed, because it wasn't stamped up or anything. So we don't know which bits of crane we've got now made out of the two cranes. They were special cranes. They were one-offs. Well, the pair was a one-off. They never repeated the idea. They stuck with their rigid 8-wheel chassis after that. It's on coil springs, and if it travels, and when it's going to a do, the driver is always on it because it's in steam. It has a habit of the 𝙎𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼 effect. It bounces, and you just basically hang on.
There is a connection to the guys that came before. They're the ones that were on 24-hour standby for breakdowns. They won't have used that crane like we do, where we're lifting it for mechanical engineering purposes. It was a breakdown crane, but still, they were there lifting rolled over steam engines and carriages and bogies, and it still does that heavy lifting, nice and controlled. It still does it as good as the day it was made. I think they'd still get a buzz out of it. The breakdown gang is a little niche that we're quite proud that we're still doing it. And I'm sure they had the same buzz, that they were the breakdown gang.
Well, I'd think it was disbelief that anyone in 1926, when this thing was brand new, would have thought that it would still be operating 100 years later. I mean, it's a credit to the builders and the fact that we've looked after it for the last. It came here in '79, and we've looked after it ever since. And it's gone through several drivers. I think I'm the longest one in the fact that I've done all this since 1979, and yeah, it's just a nice machine. I won't have a word said against it. You get the people wind me up saying, "Oh, it'd be easier if you painted it yellow and put a diesel engine in it," but but diesel engines break down. We haven't used that for 4 months. You bring it down, you fill it full of water, you light a fire in it, and 2 hours later, it's ready to go to do the job it was designed to do. And a diesel crane won't be able to sit in them sort of conditions out in the yard with moisture and all the rest of it, it won't, you know, there'll be a problem. But a steam crane, you can just drain it, winterize it, and then when it's ready to use, bring it back down, fill it full of water, light a fire.
I don't think a modern diesel crane would do anything that we can't do with a steam crane. That would still be very labour intensive. It would still be packing chains. The driver would just be sat in a different position, for instance. He wouldn't be shoveling coal. But the way our lifts go and how Tom and Adrian handle that boiler, while you're doing your lifting operations and we're humping and arriving, packing on the floor, they'll be trimming the fire. So you never notice that it's a steam crane because them lads are on top of the job. The way would be to modernise, which the railway, I think, does need to look into, is undercovered facility with a 50-ton overhead crane. That would make the labour costs a lot less. It would be a lot quicker. For instance, Heartland's boiler, we had to spend a day shunting outside. We then brought the crane down, we set the crane up. If you want to roll Heartland's boiler in enough floor space and a 50-ton crane, you just do it in the shed and put it back where you want it.
I mean, the crane is inspected twice a year by an outside insurance company, and that is for the actual crane's work, and then we have another inspection for all the tackle on it, the chains and the shackles and all the other equipment that's used with it. But it's an all-day affair when the inspector turns up. And of course, then, having had all that inspected, we then have to the boiler inspector come, and that means taking all the big doors out, washing it out, cleaning it. He'll come and do a visual on it. We put all the doors back in, then we'll steam it, and then we'll get a ticket. So the crane has to have, unlike other conventional locomotive here, we have to have 2 inspections just to operate it.
Yeah, so because it is 100 years old, the ongoing maintenance is a challenge. You know, Charlie has to oil it up. So there's oils to pay for. There's the sticky rope grease that we buy. It could do with some new covers that protect the wood and the timbers. If we've got anybody out there who's a joiner, we need some seasoned hardwood wedges that we use to keep the legs up and supported, and packing timbers. As the railway moves away from wooden sleepers onto concrete, even our wood for the packing is going to be challenging to find. But things like the protective covers, I mean, yeah, they're seeing better days. They'll be 20 years old now, and they get attacked by the sunlight and go brittle. So we're looking at new ones of them. Tooling, you know, shovels, pickaxes, the bars we use, the ratchets we've just bought new. Anybody wants to support us with any of that stuff, we'll gladly take a phone call.
You know, and I try and keep it maintained. But it was built like a battleship, so I mean, it's little things you have to do to keep it going. I mean, the main structure of the thing, I say, touch wood, is indestructible if it's treated right. You know, they were built in a time where things were built to last. Well, I just think it's an achievement that it's 100 years old and it's still working. You know, I mean, we don't overtax it. And every job we do is well thought out.
The list went bang on. The debrief points for the Heartland's roller and Eric's lift were just as planned. Lifting round things with big chains, I say we're getting pretty good at it. So they generally go bang on. Sometimes you have, I mentioned ash pans, sometimes ash pans can be a bit of a nightmare where we make a note of any ash pan modifications or who we might have had to bring in to help us, so we can reflective learn for the next lifts. But a lot of this is previous experience and reflective practices on how we take a lot of pictures, for instance, of how we've got chains and where they're positioned on boilers, because every lift and every boiler is different. So if we can scroll back through our phones and last time we lifted Repton, we know where the chains were, that saves an awful lot of time. And then we share that among our team.
I think they went all right. I didn't realise how much a Stanley tender weighed until someone told me. But then it will pick up 40. It's rated for 45 tons, but I mean the damn things were overrated, so it'd lift more than that. But they said it was 30 tons, and I said to the bloke Tom who was driving it yesterday, like I said, you'll know when you've got it, and he did. And I said, it's not the going up you've got to worry about, it's the coming back down. But he did all right. I mean, it was the first time he'd lifted anything heavy. It's all been on galas, like we're just mucking about with small fry stuff, you know, nothing of any consequence weight-wise. But I said to him, this will be a good test for you because it's something actual heavy. You'll know you've got it.
Charlie and the drivers in the crane there, you get a rapport with your crane driver and the supervisor, which I am, and Charlie knows just by my body movements what I'm going to sort of do next. And some of my hand movements, like if you wanted to slow down, your fingers might go slower, and Charlie understands that. But that's only ever built up over time. So the general lift is still the big crane with the big chains, lifting up to 45 ton hours. It will lift more, no doubt, because they're massively over-engineered, but we don't need it to. The chains themselves, you'll have seen the great big chains. They're the same chains that we use. They get examined every inspection period by our independent examiner. But just generally, a lot of things like the debrief and the reflective working and the planning, this has all evolved since, well, it must be 20 years.
I've had bad days on it, and that's not so much to do with the crane, that's to do with the job. Sometimes a boiler corrosion, crap and all the other niceties that go with a railway engine can jam a boiler in, and we've had trouble getting boilers out, and that's been a pain. We've had other days where it's snowed and you say, right, we're going to stop, and you come back next morning and it hasn't stopped snowing, but you've got to continue on. That means you've got to dig all the blinking gearing out, which is summer's frozen, and you're in there with lances of paraffin rags on sticks trying to melt the snow in the gearing. And them days ain't too great. And it's like we had a situation yesterday where the crane was sitting up against the shed door. The wind comes down the valley, hits the shed wall and throws itself down, which then goes down the chimney. It blows all the smoke out the fire old door and makes a mess of the cab. You know, not only of that, if you as well, you're trying to work in there and you're surrounded by black smoke because the smoke should be going the other way. But that building out there, because we have to do them lifts wherever they are, you know, they present their own problems, and wind blowing down the chimney isn't very nice. You know, you soon get a bit hacked off it. You go home feeling horrible, you know, your skin, you feel. Yeah, and another fallacy about it is, oh, you're all right up there, you're warm, you got a boiler. Well, it's only the backs of your legs that are warm. The top half's still frozen.
As a breakdown crane, we need to use it so we all know what it does. It's kept current. The cogs have greased regularly. The ropes are run through. The lads know which levers to put in what direction when they're driving it. You know, that Charlie's been bringing in today some instruction manuals that we're going to start adding to our collection on how to operate things and best practices. If you had just an overhead crane, you wouldn't get that. They're the best days when you got the crane out. But Charlie and myself really has a kick because that's his toy. He maintains it. He's the one that paints it, sign writes it. His knowledge of and collection of lifts from back in the day at home, I know, is quite vast. He has a collection of books. He's got scrapbooks on its history, right back from when it was commissioned, various photographs of what lifts it performed through BR, well, NER, BR, and then latterly with us. Even just the journals we keep are all part of its history, and I know Charlie gets a great buzz out of that. Charlie gets a great buzz also out of training the next drivers. So we've had a bit of a period of the past 10 years where we've tried to train people, but as they've left to progress their career, Charlie has to start again. Jack Lord, our new apprentice, had a good look round it yesterday, and Sam Dickinson. So we've got people really interested. The Railways Challenges, we need to keep them people. But Charlie will drive it forever if he can. He loves it. It's his. It is his. It's Charlie's crane. Everybody calls it Charlie's crane. I just think it's another skill set to our elbow, that it's a very multi-skilled department, like all departments on the railway, that we can lift anything along our 18 miles of railway within reason. If I can get the jib to it, we'll lift it. If it wasn't used, I don't know what you do with it. It would become a static exhibit, but I don't think parking it at Levisham so people could see it would be quite in keeping. So we just need to keep it working. And we all get a buzz out of that. We all ache the next morning. But as a supervisor, it's as well as physically tough, it's mentally tough, because you've probably seen on the lifts we've done. I'm training Chris, so I've got an eye on Chris. Chris is doing his things, but you're also watching the 4, 5, 6 people on the lift. You're communicating with Charlie. You're trying to work out the geometry of the lift. And obviously, as it slews, you're jibbing out, everything changes. You're staying in your ranges of your lift, so you know what the tender weighs 35 ton, you know, in the current state it was in. You got to set the crane up for that. The crane does have some limitations, that the jib's not very long. So if you're at 35 ton, you can only reach what you can reach. But it pulls boilers over and rolls things, and it's just mint. We love it. Charlie's always wanted to make it self-propelling. I think that would just scratch an itch that he's never moved it under its own steam. We don't need to. The 𝙁𝙊𝘾𝙄𝘼 shunter is part of the lift anyway, so you position the crane where you want it, then you put the legs out. So you've stabilised it by literally bolting it to the ground. The shunter then goes and gets what you're lifting. So it doesn't really have to self-propel. It's a nicety. We just need to keep it current in its good working order it's in. That's the first priority.
Before I stop operating it or give up to the other lads that are coming along, I would dearly like to see it move under its own power, because it's all there. It's just not used. It's all greased up and underneath, but we've never actually used it due to the fact that the gradients around here, that we always move it about with a locomotive. But it would be nice just to engage the clutches and drive it. You know, if only 100 yards on a flat piece of track, it would be nice to see that actually do that. I mean, it's the only thing I haven't seen it since I've been involved, seen it do, you know, and it would be nice. But wishful, you know, it's just pipe dream, but it would be nice to see it do that. But hey ho, you never know, do you? One day.